What's up, Transformers fans? Mondo here, the Dad Bottomist Prime himself, and welcome to week 35 of Moonbase 84's year-long celebration celebrating 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots. For this week's video, we're going back and revisiting Snarl from the 2002 Dinobots Subline. As you can see here, we have Snarl from the 2002 Dinobots Subline in his robot mode, and he is a repaint of the Beast Wars Neo Saberback figure. Now, when we took a look at Tricerodon from the same 2002 Dinobots Subline, I did mention I wanted to still go back and get Guile Dart, which Tricerodon is a repaint of from Beast Wars Neo, obviously Guile Dart, and I still want to get the Saberback for this mold. Now, I'm not a big fan of that Tricerodon figure, but I am more of a fan of this Snarl figure, so we will take a closer look at him right now. So here is Snarl holding his weapon, which is basically his tail, and I'll show off that gimmick first. Big old tail, as a lot of beast formers tend to do, use tails for their weapons, but it does have a gimmick. It sprays out like so, but I don't know if you can get in there and see. I love the color on that, the greens in there, and then the yellow with that like green, almost looks like a jewel. Very cool inside of that. I wish there was a way to hold it open. I don't think there is. I've had this figure for some time and I haven't found a way to keep it open, which is a shame because I'd love to display him like that because that just looks so cool. Taking a closer look at Snarl / Saberback, they went with a very interesting design choice with this figure. He's got like a South American, Native American motif, kind of like a Aztec or an Inca motif, complete with headdress. And it's nicely done up in yellows and reds and silvers. Now, I've seen old reviews where some people think this is kind of racist. I don't see it as racist, but let me know if you think it is or not. I don't think I'm right, and I don't think they're wrong. To me, it didn't scream racism to me, so I'm not sure how controversial it ended up ultimately being. But again, you got that nice head sculpt. You've got like a skull on his chest, which is the Stegosaurus skull. And you can lift it up and see he has an Autobot symbol. And then of course you got like the dress or whatever, whatever you have there, whatever they call it right there on the, like a skirt piece. There you go, yellow and red. You got some nice golds. I do not believe this is a GPS victim. I looked it up to make sure, but I think that's painted gold. Because on one side it appears inside there, I don't know if you can see, that side appears gray, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, I am careful with this figure because I'm not 100% sure. I did try to look it up, but I can't find anywhere where he's listed as a GPS victim. We got those nice golds, and of course the grays with some reds here to bring like the traditional Dinobot colors, because this is supposed to be an updated Dinobot faction. He does have these tall pieces here, and like parts of his dino mode on his hips, but they're not as intrusive as the Tricerodon was. And on the back, which I think is funny, is his spikes for his Stegosaurus mode, which is kind of like almost like a tail for his headdress in a way. So yeah, but to me he looks very like regal, especially with these dino mode parts sticking up here that tall. He just looks like a noble regal warrior to me, and that's why I said I don't think it's supposed to he does have trouble standing. That's why I said I don't think its intent was to be racist, but I'm not sure. What I really enjoy about this figure is that the design for his robot mode does not encumber the articulation like it did with the Tricerodon. That thing is just like a hot mess and very frustrating to mess with. This one is much better. You do get swivel at the head. His like tail spikes do get in the way, but you can still get some nice range of movement. These are kind of unintrusive when it comes to his arms because they're not attached to his arms. They're attached on the back, and you can move them out of the way if you need to, but he does do the full T. He has the bicep swivel. This is still tight on mine because I've had him for a while, but again, I was worried about GPS still, so he's still really tight. He's got a 90-degree bend at the elbow. He does have waist, like so. He can do the splits like, well, if you move, no, even with the hip skirts out of the way, he can only go that far with the splits, but that's okay. Kicks very far up. Back a little bit. Under 90 with the knee. And then you don't get an ankle pivot. You can move his foot forward a tad bit, but the hinge is here, and then this piece comes to make the robot mode foot, so not really much to speak of. But still, like I said, much less, much better articulation and nowhere near as frustrating as Triceratodon. Like I said, though, he is back heavy because of that tail, or because of his spikes. And these 2002 Dinobots came in 2-pack, so here he is with his pack mate, Sludge, who I already covered on an earlier episode of our 40-year celebration. Okay, so let's transform up Snarl into his dinosaur mode, and we will take a closer look at that. So here we have Snarl all transformed up into his alt mode, and I gotta say, they came up with a really nice Stegosaurus alt mode for back in the day, and we'll take a closer look. Again, you get those grays and just some nice sculpt work throughout the dinosaur body, the Stego body, and it goes and fades into that gold. Really nice. Of course, the little black toes. And then, of course, his spikes. Again, some nice sculpt work there. Nice and red. And again, trying to evoke the original Dinobot toy color scheme. But what I really like is the stripe work on the top, going from the top, or from the front, all the way down the tail. That white and that black, that's really nice, and it makes it really pop. And of course, we've got the dino head, the Stegosaurus head. Really cool, little red eye. And a really clean Autobot symbol on the top of the head. Articulation wise, of course, beast formers are often limited, and this is no different. Nothing on the tail. His mouth doesn't even articulate. His head doesn't swivel. Everything's locked in to make the Stego very shell formery. I'm not complaining about that. I'm just stating what it is. But his legs are on ball joints because, of course, they were his arms and legs. And you do have the hinges still that you had in robot mode. You can spread his legs out. You can't really swivel his back legs back and forth, but you can spread them a little bit. You can bend them forward, but this is the part that makes the robot mode, hit the camera, robot mode foot, so not much play there, but you can do his like ankles, I guess you call them. Underneath, pretty clean too, as far as beast formers go, so yeah. And then there's some of that gold here on the bottom of the tail, and of course, underneath on the mouth of the head of the dinosaur. So yeah, really cool though. He looks really like a really cool Stegosaurus. And here's Snarl once again with his packmate Sludge. So that's my revisiting / review of Snarl from the 2002 Dinobot subline. And in my opinion, he is one of the best from that subline. So by default, making him one of the best of the Beast Wars Neo Dinobots. Just a really cool, for one, Stegosaurus mode, really nice. I mean, yes, it does lack articulation, but what Beast Former doesn't, and that doesn't really bother me as much as others. But just really nice. I love the deco on him and everything, as I mentioned. And the robot mode is interesting by design, and also it's not hindered with the dino mode bulk. Doesn't get in the way of articulation really, which is a big bonus, because sometimes, as we know, certain beast formers can get very cumbersome and often frustrating. I still love them, but that's just the way it is. So he is much better. He is a much better overall figure than, say, like Triceratodon, and I really like this Snarl figure. With that being said, this wraps up week 35 of our year-long celebration, celebrating 40 years of Grimlock and the Dinobots. Comment to let me know what you think of Snarl here, and as always, thanks for docking.